What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and the Dave Chappelle controversy rages on as new details of this hilarious, pathetic walkout have emerged, as well as horribly unfunny comedians trying to weigh in on the whole situation for a bit of clout. Let's start with unfunny comedian Hannah Gadsby trying to gain relevance by bashing Dave Chappelle. This is via Jared Yeager over on the Post Millennial. As pushback from the left over comedy icon Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix special rages on, unfunny comedian Hannah Gadsby gave her 2 cents in what was seen by many as a desperate plea for attention. Earlier this week, Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos defended the streaming service's decision to keep Dave Chappelle's latest special up amid calls from the left to take it down. Isn't that... I want to pause for a minute here. Back when I confidently called myself a liberal, part of that was significantly driven by anti-censorship. Like, absolutely no back down, non-censorship. Now it seems like that same group of people seem to be pro-censorship. They say things like it's for people's safety, or they say it's hate speech, but really it's just censorship. It's the other side of the coin of the religious people, the religious right back in the 80s talking about devil music. Turn off that devil music. You know that Netflix is working hard to ensure marginalized communities aren't defined by a single story. So we have all these other stories. So not to let a good controversy go, Gadsby jumped in to bash Chappelle and Netflix co-CEO. Hey, Ted Sarandos, just a quick note here to let you know I would prefer if you didn't drag my name into your mess, she said. Now I have to deal with even more of the hate and anger that Dave Chappelle's fans like to unleash on me every time Dave gets $20 million to process his emotionally stunted, partial worldview. She went on to suggest that Netflix hadn't paid her enough to deal with the consequences of hate speech and dog whistling in her Netflix specials, Nanette and Douglas. F you and your amoral algorithm cult, Gadsby concluded. I do stuff with more backbone than you. That's just a joke. I definitely didn't cross the line because you just told the world there wasn't one. I mean, to me, it's also, you've probably never even heard of this comedian. It just doesn't exist. She doesn't exist in most people's worlds. But, I don't understand where this world came around, the world of this getting to, openly disparage probably her biggest paycheck possibility in the next 10 years. It's like either she knows her career's over or she feels so untouchable that she can go on and bash the place that paid her. Gadsby's Netflix specials were adored by critics but received quite awful reviews from regular viewers. This entertainment ranks up there with a visit to the dentist, writes one reviewer. Even the best audience reviews change the definition of what makes the comedy special good. The genius of the show is that it's not comedy, they write. It's a transition that you didn't even register has happened until it's over. One audience member in March called Gadsby completely unfunny, telling viewers don't waste your time. Another one-star commenter voiced similar sentiments, unfunny observations endlessly. Gadsby, who had been described as angry and bitter, is no stranger to controversial statements. Back in 2019, she said she thinks women are weak and thus men should be too. Okay. I don't even know who this lady is. I can't imagine. She's very funny. But let's get to the hilarious details of the massive walkout. 1,000 Netflix employees are reportedly planning walkout to protest Chappelle's new special. Staffers are threatening to revolt after executives double down on claims that content on screen doesn't directly translate to real-world harm. This is such a frustrating argument to still be having in 2021. It either is or it isn't. You can't just say that when our comedy, again, I'll use this example because it's the most prevalent one. Netflix is full of jokes that are anti-white male or anti-male. I mean, jokes about lazy men have existed since the beginning of time, but I want to know exactly how many of those jokes led to somebody raising their hand to a man. Patrice O'Neill was on a news show one morning, and he was talking about our jokes, those, particularly dark jokes. And the news commentator was like, what, those, those jokes exist? That's awful. And he's like, yeah, name one of them that's ever led to a real world situation where that happened. It doesn't happen. And when we all rally together to talk about how this doesn't happen in terms of, the video game world, it should also be true in terms of this particular world. I had to take a brief dog barking break there. The evil vacuum was going upstairs, and I've got 2 German Shepherds under the age of 1 that don't like the vacuum. So anyway, following Netflix's co-CEO Ted Sarandos' continued defense of anti-trans sentiments, jokes, and comedian of Dave Chappelle's new special, the closer, at least 1,000 incensed employees are reportedly planning to participate in a virtual work stoppage. Now, I want to be clear. This isn't a walkout. The media keeps presenting this as some sort of stunning and brave thing. Oh, yes, these employees they're walking out. They're going to picket. They ain't doing diddly squat. They're just walking away from their Zoom meetings for a half an hour. Ooh, you took unpaid time off work. Stunning and brave. You walked away and you went and got a Quiznos sub instead of participating in some workshop that you're dialed in remotely to. Absolutely pathetic. If you want to have any real impact, how about 1,000 people quit? They're now reportedly planning to participate in a virtual work stoppage. By the way, October 20th, waited too long. Nobody's going to care by next week. For nearly a week now, trans and trans-allied staffers have been voicing concerns over Chappelle's ridicule of the LGBTQ community throughout the special, during which he self-identifies as a TERF. He's also making a joke about that. And repeatedly dismisses the concept of gender identity altogether. Fine, biology is real. Okay, you can be nice to each other, and that's fine, and people can live their life, but to deny biology is also insanity. But in the wake of heated criticism from both employees and customers, Netflix execs have made bizarre decision to double down on their defense of the special, issuing a series of increasingly tone-deaf memos to staff. No, actually, it makes perfect sense to double down on it because they were right in the first place. I don't understand anyone outside of like a few people who haven't touched grass in 4 years that think they need to apologize. There's nobody that actually thinks Netflix owes anyone an apology here. Nobody actually thinks they should pull Dave Chappelle's special. And I've always said, all this is doing is hurting the brand. You're just making people think that trans people can't take a joke or that they're being unreasonable because, it's just normies who don't even, like, most people will never even meet someone who is trans. That's the reality, okay? If you spend too much time on Twitter, you think everyone is. Unless you live in San Francisco or, with a big metro, you will probably never even meet a trans person. So how exactly do you get these people to side with you? Well, I think education and having a clear line of, hey, this is worth fighting for. Maybe like a law or something like that discriminated against them, we could agree on. But when you're acting this butthurt over a couple of jokes, normies aren't going to be on your side and they're just going to laugh at you. They're going to think that you're having a little hissy fit, which is exactly what this is. In the most recent memos, a copy of which obtained by Variety, we already talked about that. On Thursday, The Hollywood Reporter spoke to one Netflix employee who confirmed that those comments had directly inspired the Trans Employee Resource Group, I'm sure it's like 3 people, at Netflix to organize support for the walkout. And again, stop calling it a walkout. This is the era of slacktivism, and this is slacktivism at its highest degree. Oh, I'm going to just walk away from my desk for 5 minutes while I'm working from home. That'll teach them. During, employees will halt their work and instead focus their energy on providing support and resources to the trans community and its affiliated charities. The memo was very disrespectful, the staffer said, who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Why? Put your name to it. It didn't invite a robust conversation about this hard topic, and that's normally how things go. Maybe just do your job. I mean, I'm getting more hardened. I get it. Like, I really, he apparently has a half hour on trans people, a group that probably makes up less than 1% of the total population, and whose only real ask is that you not care what they're born with. I don't think he has a half an hour on trans people. I don't think that it's not a half hour. That's the thing. As for context of the narrative that's out there, here's the trans writer who actually watched a special and describes it as essentially hack phobia. Okay, fine. If you didn't like it, Finally watched it. I thought it was pretty good, to be honest. And again, I'm not part of the trans community. First half reminded me of his old stuff, a couple of whiffs, but most of the material was sharp. Took pot shots at everyone and tiptoed right up to the line between edgy and offensive. You know, where the magic happens. Second half dragged a bit, but I felt it was composed and fresh. Was the term turf a little cringy? Yeah. Was it tongue-in-cheek statement designed to get a rise out of people? Yeah. Do I think he ultimately wants to convey a message of inclusivity and tolerance? Also, yeah. You know, I think, like, if you would stop getting riled up, it's like feeding the trolls. Dave Chappelle is essentially trolling the media into giving him a week of free advertising for a special on Netflix. I mean, the whole thing is hilarious. When you look at how it's actually being rated, Dave Chappelle, the closer, critics, 33%. Audience score, 97%. And it's only going to continue to go that way because more and more people are just going to start tuning this out, and you're going to lose actual allies. But good luck on your virtual walkout. I'm sure it's going to change a lot of minds. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.